Oh, sabotage. Indiana Fever gets smacked by the LA Sparks by 14 points. Caitlin Clark being sabotaged by this trash-ass head.
14 points. That is the final margin. But the number everyone is actually talking about tonight is 3 minutes and 10 seconds. The longest stretch Caitlin Clark stayed on the floor at one time in an entire basketball game.
You mean to tell me the bright idea, the huge reveal for the Indiana Fever, the plan for Caitlin Clark is we're going to play her for 2-minute spurts, and then we're going to take her out, and she's going to go sit on the bike for 15 minutes. Then we're going to put her in. She's going to play 2 minutes. Then we're going to take her out. She's going to go sit on the bike again. Like, dog, if this was the plan.
2 minutes in, pull her, send her to the stationary bike. Wait, put her back in for 2 more. That was the rotation Indiana ran with its franchise player for most of Wednesday night. And it is a usage pattern you almost never see applied to a starter who is not nursing something serious. Fans caught it in real time. By the third quarter, clips of Clark riding a bike in full uniform while the game was still live were already spreading faster than anything else from the broadcast. Before you decide whether this is bad luck, bad coaching, or something else, there is a piece of this story that does not come out until you look at how Indiana treated its other starting guard on the exact same night, and how the opposing bench feasted while it was happening. That comparison is coming later, because once you see it side by side, a 2-minute rotation for the team's best player starts looking a lot less like caution and a lot more like a choice somebody made on purpose.
Going to happen, man. This organization is malpractice. I'm sick of this shit. I'm over it. Pardon the language. I'm done. I'm done. Screw Stephanie White. Screw the Indiana Fever. Screw Amber Cox. Fuck them all. Fuck them all. I don't care. Pack them up. Just trade.
That reaction did not come from nowhere. Within an hour of the final buzzer, calls to trade Clark were spreading across basketball social media. And this was not a handful of accounts farming engagement off a bad loss. It was thousands of people who watched a rookie carrying more national attention than anyone else in the league get parked on a bike for most of 3 quarters, in a game her team lost by double digits at home. Some of the reaction was over the top, the kind of instant, emotional take that follows almost any bad loss involving a star player. But strip away the anger, and the sheer volume still tells you something real. When this many people, watching the same 16 minutes independently, land on the same word, sabotage, that is not just noise from people who do not understand basketball. That is a fan base telling a front office exactly how badly a decision landed, in real time, before the team even had a chance to explain itself in a press conference.
Do the Stephanie White, Kelsey Mitchell thing and let them do their thing. Trade Caitlin Clark. Let her stay in Los Angeles. Just get rid of her now. Just get rid of her now. The plan was garbage. The most Caitlin Clark played at one time, the most she played was 3 minutes and 10 seconds. Now, I get it. She's on a minutes restriction. If the minutes restriction was for Caitlin Clark to play 15 minutes, what?
Here is where it gets complicated, because Indiana has pointed to a minutes restriction, and that is a real thing teams do, usually to manage a nagging injury or a heavy accumulated workload over a long season. If that is genuinely what this was, capping her total minutes is defensible on its own, no argument there. The problem is what a restriction like this actually does to a player once it gets applied in 2-minute windows instead of one longer, continuous stretch. A guard who lives on rhythm, catching a live dribble in space, reading a closeout, getting into her shooting pocket off a live screen, does not build any of that in 2-minute increments with a 10-minute break on a bike in between each one. 15 minutes total, spread across 5 separate shifts, is not the same basketball as 15 minutes played in one continuous stretch, even though the box score treats them as identical. So even if the restriction itself was legitimate medically, the way it got executed on the floor is a completely separate question, and it is the one Indiana has not actually answered for the public. Plenty of teams around this league manage a minutes restriction by shortening a starter's night without shredding it into fragments. One longer first-half stretch, a lighter second half, still enough continuous time to actually play basketball. Indiana chose the other version, the version that maximizes rest and minimizes rhythm at the same time. And nobody in the organization has explained why that specific approach was necessary instead of the more common one.
Stupid. And I feel like this is sabotage to minimize her stats. The girl had 9 points today. 9 points and 3 assists. Her stats are about to tumble now. Bro, I think this is all calculated. They're trying to lower her stats. This is all sabotage, and it's ridiculous. This was an awful plan by the Indiana Fever.
9 points, 3 assists, 16 total minutes across an entire game. Those are the numbers Clark walked away with, and read cold off a stat sheet. They look like a rough shooting night from a struggling rookie who lost her form. But strip out the roughly 8 minutes she spent parked on the bike between shifts, and what you are actually looking at is a guard who barely got enough consecutive possessions to miss her way into a rhythm before she was pulled again. 1 of 6 from three-point range is not really a story about a jump shot that abandoned her overnight. It is closer to a story about a jump shot that never got the runway every high-volume scorer in this league needs, possession after possession, to find its rhythm in the first place. Compare that specific usage pattern to any other high-volume guard around the league right now, and you will not find a real comparable case, because most coaching staffs understand that chopping up a rhythm scorer's minutes into fragments is one of the fastest ways to guarantee a cold shooting night. It is the basketball equivalent of judging a marathon runner on a series of sprints with long breaks in between, and then acting surprised when the pace looks nothing like a marathon.
And then, she gets benched in the fourth quarter. She gets benched after a turnover. Kelsey Mitchell never gets benched after her turnovers, ever. This is ridiculous, man. I am done with this team. I am done with this staff.
Then there is the fourth quarter benching. And this is where the pattern stops looking like caution and starts looking like a decision with a clear direction behind it. Clark turns the ball over, and she is immediately pulled to the bench. Across that same fourth quarter, Kelsey Mitchell also turned the ball over more than once and stayed on the floor every single time it happened without so much as a second look from the sideline. One rookie mistake gets an instant hook. A veteran's mistakes get played through completely. Coaches are allowed to trust different players differently. That genuinely is part of the job. Nobody is arguing every player on a roster deserves identical treatment in every situation. But when the gap in trust is this visible, in a close, high-leverage fourth quarter, in a game the team is actively losing on its home floor, it stops being a subtle coaching wrinkle and becomes something the entire arena can see and feel in real time, including the rest of the players watching it happen to a teammate from the bench. Rookies are supposed to play through mistakes. That is how they actually develop over a season. And a coaching staff that yanks its most talented young player at the first sign of trouble while extending real patience to a veteran is sending a message about whose mistakes are considered acceptable and whose are not, whether that message was intentional or not.
You got blown out, and I already know everybody's about to blame Caitlin Clark for the loss. Everybody's going to be blaming her. I'm already prepared for it. They're going to blame somebody. She was a minus 16. Now, I'm going to hold Caitlin accountable for this. I'm going to hold her accountable for this. She has some late game turnovers that were absolutely, not late game. She had what? I don't even know how, but she had 4 turnovers? 2 of them were her fault. I'll say 2 of them were her fault. Outside of that, I'm not blaming her for 1 of 6 from 3. She's in no rhythm. I'm not blaming her for 4 of 12. This ain't on Caitlin Clark. This is on the damn
None of this means Clark played a clean game, and it is worth saying that plainly, because a one-sided account helps nobody here. She finished a minus 16 for the night. She had 4 turnovers, and by her own accounting afterward, at least 2 of those were genuinely on her, not the system around her. 4 of 12 from the field overall is not a great shooting line by any measure, restriction or no restriction, rhythm or no rhythm. A fair breakdown of this game holds 2 things true at the same time. Clark made real mistakes that a franchise point guard eventually has to eliminate on her own. Full stop. No excuses there. And she made them while playing a version of basketball, in 2-minute bursts with long cold stretches on a bike in between, that made those exact mistakes statistically more likely, not less. Credit her for the 2 turnovers that were genuinely hers to own. The cold shooting night that came out of a stop-start usage pattern is a separate conversation entirely, and lumping the two together is exactly how a rookie ends up unfairly wearing an entire road-feeling home loss on her own stat line alone.
This is on the head coach. This is on the head coach. Flat out. Flat out, bro. Monique Billings was awful, but she did have 12 rebounds, but she wasn't good. Maisha Hines-Allen played 12 minutes. All zeros across the board, 2 rebounds. Horrible. Lexi Hall, 6 of 13, 14 points. She had a solid...
Widen the lens past Clark, and the box score gets worse for almost everyone wearing an Indiana jersey that night. Not just the rookie everyone online is arguing about this morning. Monique Billings finished scoreless across roughly 12 minutes on the floor. Nothing in the scoring column at all. Lexi Hall shot 6 of 13 for 14 points, in a game the team still lost by 14 at home. A genuinely solid individual outing inside a losing effort. Kelsey Mitchell was excellent after a slow start, and that part deserves real credit. She earned every bit of her 29 points closing out the second half on her own. But a team that gets outplayed at multiple positions on the floor for 40 minutes cannot reasonably pin a 14-point home loss on one rookie who logged 16 total minutes across the entire night. The math simply does not support that conclusion. And by halftime, honestly, neither did Indiana's offense as a unit. Blaming a 14-point loss on a rookie who barely touched the floor is the easiest, laziest story available, and it happens to be the one that is already spreading fastest this morning. Which tells you something about how these narratives usually form before anyone actually checks the minutes column.
Man, look at this possession from the Indiana Fever. We had 3 straight bunnies missed. Look at this nonsense. Look at this. Okay, Kelsey Mitchell smokes the layup. Monique Billings misses a layup. Lexi Hall, 4 feet away, misses. I mean, golly, y'all. I mean, damn. Come on, man. This team is terrible.
And it was not just cold shooting. Watch the possessions themselves, and you see 3 straight bunnies missed in the paint on one single trip down the floor. Wide open layups that a professional roster is expected to finish 9 times out of 10 in practice, let alone under real game pressure. That is not rhythm, that is not a minutes restriction, and that is not anything that traces back to Caitlin Clark sitting on a bike watching from the sideline. That is a full roster, playing without continuity, missing the exact kind of shots that decide close games long before it ever comes down to a late fourth-quarter possession or a rotation decision from the head coach. If Indiana wants to point at usage patterns as the single reason this game got away from them, the film of 3 straight blown layups in the paint on one possession says the problems went a lot deeper than any one player's minute count, restricted or not, and a fair accounting of Wednesday night has to include every name on that roster, not just the one everybody already had strong feelings about.
The Indiana Fever couldn't do was let players who've been average or garbage look like good players. They made Ray Burrell look like Jason Tatum out there. Ray Burrell looked like Jason Tatum, 9 of 15, 22 points, 2 of 3 from 3. She had 22 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds. Ariel Atkins finally looked like a good basketball player. She had 12. Erica Wheeler had 12 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists. De'Erica Hamby, 21 points, 9 rebounds. Nneka Ogwumike, 24 points, 8.
Now flip the film to the other bench, because this is the part of the story that keeps getting skipped in most of the online reaction. Los Angeles got big, efficient nights from role players who do not usually have them. The kind of performance that tends to happen specifically when the opposing defense has no continuity, no established rotation, and no rhythm of its own to disrupt anybody with. That is not a coincidence buried in a box score footnote. It connects directly back to the same core problem: a Fever team playing disjointed, matchup hunting basketball for 40 minutes straight. And this reaches past Wednesday's final score into something closer to a business decision, because Clark's minutes moved television numbers and ticket sales at a scale almost no other rookie in recent league history has matched. A coaching staff that keeps its most bankable, most watched player glued to a bike for stretches of a nationally relevant game is making a call that front offices, broadcast partners, and season ticket departments absolutely notice and absolutely track, whether or not that is the intention behind it.
They intentionally sat Aaliyah Boston out. She could have played today. But this is what happens when you don't respect the game. Stephanie White thought she could play Caitlin Clark 12, 13 minutes and not play Aaliyah Boston at all, and they could just walk in there and beat the Sparks, and they got their ass handed to them. That's what happens when you think you could just show up and beat on someone.
So is this actually sabotage? In the literal sense of a coaching staff deliberately trying to damage a player's numbers on purpose? There is no real evidence of that, and it would be reckless to flatly state that Stephanie White is trying to hurt her own franchise player's career. Because nothing here proves intent, and intent is the entire difference between a conspiracy and a mistake. What the tape actually supports is something less dramatic, and still genuinely worth being frustrated about. A first-year head coach who has not yet solved how to build one coherent rotation around two very different guards, Clark's downhill, live dribble, catch-and-shoot game, and Mitchell's off-ball scoring rhythm, and who is defaulting to short matchup hunting bursts instead of committing to a single clear plan and living with the results. Layer in a real minutes restriction applied without much apparent thought for rhythm, a shorthanded roster with Aaliyah Boston out of the lineup entirely, and a coaching staff still learning on the job under a national spotlight. And you get exactly the kind of chaotic, stop-start usage pattern that fans online are calling sabotage. Call it what you want, because from where Clark was sitting, on a bike, for most of the fourth quarter of a game her team desperately needed her in, incompetence and sabotage produced the exact same box score either way.
This organization is a joke. Caitlin Clark, your brand, your reputation is being tainted by this organization, and you need to wake the hell up and see what's going on. You need to get the hell away from these people. You need to get away from here. You need to demand it.
Which raises the question nobody inside the organization wants to answer publicly right now. How many more nights like this one can Indiana actually afford before the conversation moves from frustrated fans online to an actual, formal trade request from Clark's own camp? She is still on her rookie contract, still fully under team control for now, and still, by a wide margin, the single most valuable asset this franchise has ever had, on the floor and off it, in ticket revenue and national relevance alike. But value cuts both ways in a situation like this one. If a front office cannot show its franchise player a credible, consistent plan for how she actually fits into the offense on a night-to-night basis, that same value starts becoming leverage that runs in the other direction entirely. Every chopped-up, restricted outing like this one adds another entry to a growing file. And file is genuinely the word agents and player representatives use once these conversations start happening quietly behind closed doors, instead of in post-game press conferences in front of cameras. None of that means a trade is imminent or even likely this season. It means the pressure on this coaching staff to show a coherent plan in public with real minutes and a real role is only going to build with every game that looks like Wednesday.
Trade, where the hell is Aaron Kane? Can you do something for a change? Where the hell are you? Get Caitlin Clark out of this sabotaging organization with this bum of a coach. This is ridiculous. Caitlin Clark is just being sabotaged nonstop, man. I am disgusted. I am disgusted with what I saw today. What says you?
So here is the actual question, not the outrage version of it circulating online tonight. The real one underneath all of it. Is Indiana carefully protecting a guard on a legitimate, medically necessary minutes restriction, or is it mismanaging the most valuable asset in franchise history in real time and hoping nobody outside the building notices until the losses start piling up in a way that cannot be explained away anymore? Both explanations are on the table, and only one of them survives the next few weeks of tape once the restriction, if it is real, finally gets lifted and Clark goes back to playing normal, uninterrupted minutes. If nothing changes even then, this conversation stops being about caution altogether. You watched the same 16 minutes everyone else did tonight. Tell me which one you actually saw in the comments below. And if you want to see how Indiana's front office responds to this the moment it happens, like this video, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you do not miss it.